Hi everyone and welcome to the tutorial. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to work German short rows. I've been gravitating to German short rows a lot lately when I'm working a stockinette fabric because I think they work really well with this stitch. They blend quite invisibly and they're just really easy to work as well. So the easiest part of a German short row is the first part, which is where we just knit to a certain number of stitches away from the end of our fabric or a certain number of stitches into our fabric, our project, and then we turn our work. So let's pretend that my pattern says to knit to X number of stitches away from the end of your project and then turn your work. So let's say that number is 4. So there's 4 stitches there. I've got too many stitches, so I'm going to knit those. And then I've knit to my last 4 stitches and then I turn my work. So this next part is the interesting bit. You will see that at the start of your next row, your pattern will say some sort of combination of DS or double stitch. So to create a double stitch, we basically just pull our yarn up and over the top of the needle. So the double stitch is done to the next stitch at the start of your next row. So in my case it's this stitch right here, and it's the stitch that has the working yarn attached to it. So if my pattern says now to DS, what I'm going to do is slip that stitch purlwise from my left to my right hand needle, and then I'm going to pull my working yarn, which is at the front of my work. That's really important. Even on a right side, your working yarn needs to be, so right side if you were to knit the next stitch, your working yarn needs to be at the front. And then you pull it up and over your needle, which also pulls up this little stitch here, which is below the current stitch on your needle. So if I pull that back down, you can see it's just a purl bump. And if I pull that yarn over, it starts to expose the 2 legs of that stitch. And we can begin to see why this is called a double stitch. It looks like 2 stitches concurrently over the needle. You can really see it there. This is 1 stitch here, but it looks like 2. And that's our double stitch created. I then need to work the rest of my stitches, and because these are purl stitches, my yarn needs to come back to the front of my work. So all I do is bring that around and make sure I've done it tightly, pulling that stitch so we keep that stitch as a double stitch. And now we just purl. So I purl the next stitch, might just give that another tug to make sure that it's all pretty tight, and then all our other stitches are worked as normal. So you just count the DS as working that first stitch, and if it says, you know, knit 8 stitches, so that's our double stitch there, and then we count 8 stitches from that. So it'd be 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm just going to work to my last 4 stitches again, because this is what the pattern would generally tell you. It's going to work to a certain number of stitches and then turn your work. So now I'm on my knit side, and creating the double stitch on this side is just a little bit different. So I'm going to bring my yarn to the front of my work first. Then I'm going to slip this first stitch on the end of my left hand needle purlwise to the right hand needle. And then I'm once again going to pull my yarn up and over the stitch, and you'll hopefully see that that is creating another double stitch. So if we go back down, it's just a knit stitch below the needle, and then we pull the yarn up, and that stitch sort of becomes wrapped over the needle and turns it into a double stitch. Now because my next stitch is a knit stitch and I'm going to work it as a knit stitch, I don't then need to bring my working yarn to the front of my work. It stays at the back. So I just pull that really tightly and then work my next stitch as a knit stitch just as normal. And we just knit. So I'm just going to do that really quickly once more for both versions of what the double stitch can be. So let's say we'll knit to 4 stitches for the double stitch again. So there's my double stitch. It's pretty easy to see it because it looks really weird compared to all the other stitches. And then we count 2, 4 in front of that. So this is the point where I turn my work. So if you remember, we're going to slip the stitch purlwise with the yarn in front to the right hand needle, then pull the yarn up and over the needle, which pulls the stitch up and over the needle. Bring the yarn to the front so that we can purl the next stitch. Pull that all tightly and then purl. And I'm going to work to, let's do one more stitch so it's not too close. So we'll work to 3 stitches before the last double stitch on this side. So there's my double stitch, 3 stitches before it. Turn my work. Bring the yarn to the front and then slip that next stitch purlwise. And then pull the yarn up and over the needle, which pulls the stitch below up and over the needle, and then knit as normal. So now to work the double stitch, hopefully you can see clearly that that is a double stitch here. All we do is knit it, but make sure we're knitting through both legs of the stitch. So I'm just poking my right hand needle through both like so, and then I just knit it exactly as you do a normal stitch, and that works it. We'll work to the next one. It's pretty easy to tell when you reach one. It feels so different to all your other stitches, and you can see if you sort of separate the stitches that are alongside it, you can see that it's weird how there are 2 stitches coming out of the one stitch. That tells you it is a double stitch. And we just insert our needle through both legs, knit it as normal, and then I'm just going to knit to the end of my work and show you what it looks like. So there were 2 double stitches worked in that, and it's really hard to see them now, and that is the beauty of German short rows with the stockinette fabric. I'm going to turn my work now so I can show you how we work those double stitches on the purl side. Essentially it is exactly how we work them on the knit side. We're just going to work those double stitches as normal stitches, but making sure that we've inserted our needle through both legs of the stitch. So just purling to that point. One more. That's my double stitch there. Insert the needle through both legs like so. Purl them together. Then work to my next double stitch, which is this one here. Insert the needle through both legs. Purl it, and then we'll just work to the end. And that is how you both create a double stitch and also work that stitch when the time comes to it. Doesn't that look lovely? So thank you for watching.